the first thing as I do, come in and look at the engine. Now they've already dived the intakes. They physically get up in the intakes. They physically feel the first stage of the blades. They physically look back into the second and third stage if they can go that far. If we pick up anything, they'll look back and they'll dress those blades up to make them perfect. We've been very fortunate with that. I check my blow-in doors. These are pressure activated. At high speed, they'll be out flush with the fuselage. At low speed and at idle, the engine wants to suck more air, and so they'll be pulled in as soon as the engine starts. An intake is always a compromise for over the operating airspeed envelope of an airplane. At high speed, you want smaller intakes. At low speed, you want bigger intakes. And this one goes from -30, where the air may be actually coming backwards and going into the engine, to the hover, where it may be sucking up some of its own exhaust, to 650 knots. I'll make sure that the gear door opening has been pushed in and locked by moving the doors. I'll look up in here and make sure the down lock is removed. There's a down lock there for the nose gear. There's also a little pin in there that depressurizes the nose for towing. Walk around the airplane. I'll check the front reaction control system, make sure it's nice and tight. This one should always be nice and tight and not move. Look at my pitot booms, and here's my angle of attack probe. I'm looking for any signs of FOD or stuff that's on the front part of this airplane, missing fasteners or whatnot that could go down the engine. This is the critical part right here, because anything that comes off of here is going right there, and the day's not going to work out real good. Look in here. I'm looking at snubbers. I'm looking for discoloration, anything. These are some blow-off doors. The air goes in here if the pressure is too high, rather than blow out these, which could happen. They can go past the stop. The air goes in through those blow-in doors and go out back of the canopy. I'm looking at my nose wheel steering. This is a special depressurization pin. This pin has to be in for us to be able to tow the airplane. We have no differential brakes because of the layout of the landing gear. We have two main gear in the outriggers. There's no brakes on the outriggers. The only way we can control this airplane is through nose wheel steering or reaction control system if that were to fail, but that's very limited control. I'm looking at my nozzles. These are called the cold nozzles because they have air from the fan that comes out through here. The other two nozzles are hot. The air coming out of here is you can put your hand up here and you're not going to get burnt. It's very hot coming out of the hot nozzles. Looking at the leading edge of the wing, looking for any dents, dings, things that could have damaged the reaction control system that come out through here. I'll look at the reaction control system and the strut for normal inflation. And I also check to make sure that I got a positive movement between this reaction control system with the aileron. I can feel a slight little movement right there and have it, and it's not excessive. Looking for leaks. The airplane does leak, so that's not a Downing discrepancy. It depends on the type of the leak and where the leak is. I'll take a look at the back end of the engine in through the hot nozzle here. Shouldn't see any abnormal discolorations or fuel puddling back in there or anything. There's a down lock under the main gear, and the main gear close. They should be free to move because they'll lock in the open position, and there's an adjustable link in it that we have to reset to make sure that the gear will operate normally. The speed brake. This airplane does not need a speed brake. Most of the pilots get in the habit of using the nozzles anyway to slow down. You can kill 100 knots of speed very, very quickly with the nozzles. The speed brake, there are some times I use it, but most of the time I do use the nozzles. It adds a little bit extra directional stability in the landing configuration. Normal flying, it's up. As soon as you lower the gear, it comes down to the trail, to the half extended position to add directional stability. The whole airplane's about directional stability. You can see the size of the vertical fin. It has a ventral fin here. I'll look inside the actuator for the tailplane. This obviously should not be leaking. This is your main elevator control. It's a whole moving slab to give you adequate control over the whole flight range of the airplane. The vertical slab, obviously, it shouldn't be damaged or dinged. And I always pick up on it a little bit just to see how loose the bearings feel. We've got the rudder. Notice the rudder's a different color on this airplane. This airplane is XZ439. That rudder came off of XZ438, which was the very first Sea Harrier, the oldest Sea Harrier. That airplane crashed. They transferred the rudder over to here, maybe because they needed a rudder, but we like to think it was because they wanted to pass the torch on and the heritage on of the very first Sea Harrier, 438. I think it says 438 on it someplace. I checked the yaw reaction control system, make sure that it's tied directly with the rudder and has the appropriate amount of free play. There's the rear pitch reaction control nozzle. That is hooked directly with the all the controls are directly hooked to the stick and to the appropriate aerodynamic control, so they're transparent to the pilot. Roll control, for example, is hooked right directly with the aileron. Pull up on the tail a little bit, look in this side to see if there's any leaks. It's not unusual to see the back half of the airplane sandblasted. In fact, if you look at the front of our speed brake, there's no paint on it. It's because landing at a slow speed, 60 knots ground speed is the critical speed where anything you blow up will impact the back of the airplane. It won't go down the intake. So we try to land at least 60 knots unless we're going to land pure vertically or with just a creeping. We do a creeping vertical landing on asphalt. It's like putting your hand on a bar candle. We did a lot of testing with that, actually putting our hand on bar candles, and bar candles all over the entire world. And if you move your hand slightly, you won't get it burnt. And we use that same philosophy coming to do a vertical landing on asphalt by starting a vertical landing, letting the nozzles blow off all of the loose particles, dirt, dust, rocks, whatever, and then just creeping at the last 25 feet, just creeping forward just enough to not burn the asphalt. The fleet doesn't do that. That's a technique that we've developed. I look in this hot nozzle, should be the same as the other one. The same on the reaction control system. And I'm looking for damage. I'm also looking to make sure that all the fasteners are back in the panels here, because we take the panels off to connect and disconnect the batteries. We're human, and sometimes we might not get something hooked back up there, but it gives me a chance to see it with a chance to correct it. I'm looking at the tires. We can take the main tires down to no groove, but we we don't want to see any exposed cord on that. The same with the nose tire. And now that we've got spare, this was a last minute addition to this nose tire. This nose tire to me looks like it's in pretty rough shape, but it was all that we had at the time to get us through 2 air shows. Now we've got some brand new spares sitting over in the other hangar. Once this is complete, I'll climb up in the cockpit, remove the 3 ejection seat pins that mechanically safe it, make sure that the arm is raised and is mechanically safe, that my harness is connected, and everything in the cockpit looks right, and I'll start strapping in.